ॐ श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम गोपिका जीवन स्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्दा सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। शुक्लांभरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। यस्वानुभावमखिल श्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपमतितितीर्षतां तमोन्धं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुम् उपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां। योगीन्द्राय नमस्तस्मै शुकाय ब्रह्मरूपिणे संसारसर्पदष्टं यो विष्णुरातमहूमुचते कालव्यालमुखग्रास त्रासनिर्नाशहेतवे श्रीमद्भागवतं शास्त्रं कलौकीरेण भाषितम् एतस्मादपरं किञ्चित् मनःशुद्ध्येन विद्यते जन्मान्तरे भवेत् पुण्यं तदा भागवतं लभेत् ज्ञानवैराग्यसम्पूर्णान् हरिभक्तिपरायणान् पूर्वाचार्यातहं वन्दे सम्प्रदायप्रवर्तकान् भगवन्नाम साम्राज्य लक्ष्मी सर्वस्वविग्रहं श्रीमद्बोधेन्द्रयोगीन्द्र देशिकेन्द्रम् उपास्महे। कलिकालोचितं धर्मं नाम संकीर्तनात्मकं निर्णेतुमवतीर्णं तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयात् इतरतश्चार्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्रुवस्तशिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनं श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषिभिस्तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखाद् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् श्रीमद्भागवताख्योऽयं प्रत्यक्षः कृष्ण एव हि स्वीकृतोऽसि मया नाथ मुक्त्यर्थं भवसाहरे मनोरथो मदीयोऽयं सफलः सर्वदा त्वया निर्विघ्नेनैव कर्तव्यो दासोऽहं तव केशव। श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः श्रीहरये नमः। गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्दा सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। Welcome everyone. Okay, so today 119, I think we need to do from 22 to end and then up to the 14 stanzas of the second one. Hey Priya, can you do 14 stanzas, maybe from 22 to 36, and then Amuchechi, can you do the rest? Okay.
कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः। आकृत्य तद्रुषिगणवश परीक्षित समं मधुच्युत्पुरुषाव्यलीकम् आभाष शैलान् अभिनन्द्य युक्तान् विश्रूषमाणश्चरितानि विष्णोः समागता सर्वत एव सर्वे वेधायतामूर्ति धराश्रीपृष्ठे नेहात नामुत्र कश्चनार्थ कृते परानुग्रहमात्मशीलं तदर्थवः पृच्छयमिमं विवृक्षे विश्रभ्य विप्रा इति कृत्यतायां सर्वात्मना म्रियमाणश्च कृत्यं शुद्धं च तत्रामृषताभियुक्ताः
Priya, on the
तत्र
second line, Mriyamanaischa Krityam. Okay. Nai. Okay.
म्रियमाणैश्च कृत्यम् तत्राभवद्भगवान् व्यासपुत्रो यदृच्छया कामतमान्नोनपेक्षः अलक्ष्य लिङ्गो निजलाभतुष्टो वृतश्च कालैरवधूतवेषः तं व्यस्तवशं सुकुमारपादकरोरुबाह्वं स कपोलगात्रम् चार्वायताक्षें न स तुल्यकर्ण सुध्वाननं तं सुजातखण्डं
Sorry, on the second line, la Charvayataksho. You said Kshe, I think. Kshonnasa.
चार्वायताक्षो न स तुल्यकर्ण निगूढजत्रुं पृथुतुङ्गवक्षसम् आवर्तनाविम्बलिवल्भूधरं च दिगम्बरं वक्त्रविकीर्णकेशं प्रलम्बबाहुं स्वमरोत्तमाभं श्यामं सदा पीत्य वयोङ्गलक्ष्म्या स्त्रीणां मनोज्ञं रुचिरस्मितेन प्रत्युत्थितास्ते मुनयस्वासनेभ्यः तल्लक्षणज्ञा अपि गूढवर्चसं सविष्णुरातोऽतिदय आगताय तस्मै सपर्यां शिरसा जहार ततो निवृत्तास्य भूता स्त्रियोर्बकाः महासने सोपविवेशपूजितः संवृत्तस्तत्र महान् महीयसां ब्रह्मस्विराजर्षि देवर्षि सङ्गैः व्यरोचतालं भगवान् यतेन्दुः प्रहर्ष तारान् इतरैः परीतः प्रशान्तमासीनमकुण्डमेतसं मुनिं नृपो भागवतोऽभ्युपेत्य प्रणम्य मूर्ध्ना वहितः कृताञ्जलिः नत्वा गिरासूनृतयान् वपृच्छत् परीक्षितुवाच अहो अद्य वयं ब्रह्मन् तत्ते व्याः क्षत्रबन्धवः कृपयाति रूपेण भवद्भिस्तीर्थकाः कृताः येषां संस्मरणात् पुंसां सद्य शुध्यन्ति वै गृहाः किं पुनर्दर्शनस्पर्श पादौ शौचासनादिभिः
Pada. On the second, Pada Shauchasanadibihi.
पादशौचासनादिभिः सान्निध्याते महायोगिन् पादकानि महात्यभिः सद्यो नश्यन्ति वै पुंसां विष्णोरिव सुरेतराः अपि मे भगवान् प्रीतः कृष्णः पाण्डुसुतप्रियः पैतृष्वसेय प्रीत्यर्थं तद्गोत्रस्यात् बान्धवः अन्यथा देव्यक्तक्रतेः दर्शनं नः कथं नृपां नितरां म्रियमाणानां संसिद्धस्य मनीयतः अतः पृच्छामि संसिद्धिं योगिनां परमं गुरुं पुरुषस्येह यत्कार्यं म्रियमाणस्य सर्वथा श्रोतव्यम् अतोधव्यं यत्कर्तव्यं नृपः प्रभो स्मर्तव्यं भजनीयं वा ब्रूहि यद्वाग्विपर्ययम्
You can stop there.
गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्द गोविन्द नूनं भगवतो ब्रह्मन् गृहेषु गृहमेथिनां न लक्ष्यते ह्यवस्थानम् अभिगोदोहनं क्वचित् सूत उवाच एवमाभाषितः पृष्टः स राज्ञा श्लक्ष्णया गिरा प्रत्यभाषत धर्मज्ञो भगवान् बादरायणिः इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे वैयासिक्याम् अष्टादशसाहस्र्यां पारमहंस्यां संहितायां प्रथमस्कन्धे शुकागमनं नाम 19. द्वितीयस्कन्ध अथ प्रथमोऽध्यायः। श्रीशुक उवाच वरीयानेष ते प्रश्नः कृतो लोकहितं नृप आत्मवित्सम्मतः पुंसां श्रोतव्यादिषु यः परः श्रोतव्यादीनि राजेन्द्र नृणां सन्ति सहस्रशः अपश्यतामात्मतत्त्वं गृहेषु गृहमेधिनां निद्रया ह्रियते नक्तं व्यवायेन च वावयः दिवाचार्ते हया राजन् कुटुम्बभरणेन वा देहापत्यकलत्रादिषु आत्मसैन्वेष्वसत्स्वपि तेषां प्रमत्तो निधनं पश्यन्नपि न पश्यति तस्मात् भारतः सर्वात्मा भगवान् ईश्वरो हरिः श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यश्चेच्छदा भयम् एतावान् साङ्ख्ययोगाभ्यां स्वधर्मपरिनिष्ठया जन्मलाभः परः पुंसाम् अन्ते नारायणस्मृतिः प्रायेण मुनयो राजन् निवृत्ता विदिशेधतः नैर्गुण्यस्तारमन्ते स्म गुणानुकथने हरेः इदं भागवतं नाम पुराणं ब्रह्मसंहितम् अधीतवान् द्वापरादौ पितृद्वैपायनादहम् परिनिष्ठितोऽपि नैर्गुण्ये उत्तमश्लोकलीलया गृहीतचेता राजर्षे आख्यानं यदधीतवान् तदहं तेऽपि दास्यामि महापौरुषिको भवान् यस्य श्रद्धदतामाशु स्यां मुकुन्दे मतः सति. Is it Mukunde or Mukante?
Mukunde.
Okay, I said correct that. Okay. Edar nividyamananam ichchadamaguto bhayam yoginam nribanirnitam harirnamanukirtanam.
That first line. Etan nirvidyamananam.
Edar nirvidyamananam.
Yeah.
Kim pramattasya bahubihi parokshaihayanayriha varam muhurtam vididam khadeda shreyase yataha. खड्वांगो नाम राजर्षिः ज्ञात्वे यत्तामिहायुषः मुहूर्तात् सर्वमुत्सृज्य गतवान् भयं हरिं तवप्येतर्हि कौरव्य सप्ताहं जीवितावधिः उपकल्पय तत्सर्वं तावत् साम्परायिकम्
Continue from 15. Madhu, will you be able to join for the first half? I wasn't sure of your availability in the first.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. So, Jayashree, you can be student. Jayashree Shankar and Madhu, you can be student. Okay. So, I think we kind of said meaning till about 14. I'll say till about 25 quickly because after that, the Virat Swarupam form comes, which is very similar to, and coincidentally, I was teaching Dashakam 6 in Narayanam today to one of the class, which was exactly the same Virat Swarupam form. So it's nothing different. It is just pretty much exactly same thing, which is there in Narayanam also. So we kind of where we left in the last class when Shuka Brahmam starts responding, he primarily says two things. One is he gives a one-line answer in stanza 5. He says, Shrotavyaha kirtitavyascha smartavyascha bhayam. To do all of these things, Srotavyam, to hear about, to kirtita, to glorify somebody, to smartavya, to remember somebody. There's only one is Ishwaro Bhagavan Harihi. There should be no doubt about it. That's the only one you need to do all this. That's the first answer he gives. Then the second one he gives in the very next stanza, he says whether somebody is trying to attain perfection through Sankhya Yoga or somebody is doing the Swadharma, trying to do one's own duty through the Karma Yoga. The most important thing is Ante Narayana Smritihi. At the very end, you should be able to remember Narayana at the end, which is the most important thing. And then he gives the story of Khadvanga, who only had a moment to live. And then he says, Parikshit, why are you worrying? You have 7 days left. When Khadvanga had only 1 day, moments left, he was able to attain liberation because he was thinking of Narayana at the very last minute. So that's where we kind of ended the meaning, which is around 14 or 14 or 13 actually. So at the time, so Parikshit, then the Shukra continues the thing. He says, because Parikshit's question was, what should one do at the very end of one's life, right? And here, the very end of one's life doesn't mean just before death, because you're never going to know when that is going to happen. So it is whenever you decide that the time is right for you to quit everything and move on, that is the right time, right? So here he says, like exactly what Narada recommended to Dhritarashtra and Pan Singh is by Gandhari also. What Vidura also told them, which was to say, quit everything, right? So that's what here Shukra Brahman is also saying. At the very end, you quit everything that you have, cut all the material attachments, go to a place where it supports that kind of environment, right? And then which is sanctified, which is a proper place. And then once you do that, the first thing is, of course, like I said, controlling your breathing process. So you should be able to control your breathing process. Then you are withdrawing all your sense from all of the external sensory activity. So whatever is giving you pleasure, right? So the 5 senses, you should be able to withdraw it, which means not get distracted by it and continues to focus on it. And then he says, the best is, he says, you focus on the limbs of Vishnu, focus on the body of Vishnu without forgetting the full picture. So sometimes, you zoom in, right? And then you might then be difficult to come out of it. But he says you have to remember the full picture of Vishnu. And then you kind of zoom in and then focus on each of the limbs of Vishnu. And that is the best thing. That's what Shukra Brahman says. So at that time, Parikshit then asks another question to say, okay, that is great. But mind, like it'll just keep getting distracted, right? How do I kind of keep it focused? And then what is that form of Vishnu? What is that form of Narayana on which I should meditate? So at that time is when Shukra Brahman then starts describing the Virat Swarupam of the Lord. And like we've discussed, in Narayanam also on this thing, is the whole idea of this Virat means 14 worlds. So like we said, the Brahmandam that is there, which is the Hiranyandam, is the golden egg, which has all the material things necessary. And we'll discuss some of this in the Dashama Skandam, second Skandam only. But once the energy of the Lord goes in there and it starts creating the 14 worlds, all those 14 worlds reside inside that Brahmandam. So all you are doing is you're visualizing the form of the Lord from head to his feet, actually from feet to the head, you visualize, where you have all the 14 worlds. You assume all of the 14 worlds are there. Not only are the 14 worldly planetary systems are there, also everything inside of that is also there. So like in the first skandam also we saw, this is only for novice people who have to have a form to visualize. Eventually, like he says, you should be able to get to a state of dhyana in your Ashtanga yoga where you are not visualizing any form. But that is very hard. That will come at the very, very, very end after several years or several janmams of it. So for people who are novice, he says, at least imagine that everything is part of that. So there's nothing which is outside this form of the Lord, inside that Brahmanda. That's the context of this whole, Virat Swarupam. So the Virat means 14 worlds, and Virat Rupam is the form, the form of the Lord, which has the 14 worlds in there, right? That is the definite meaning of it. So anyway, so he kind of gives that context of what that is. And he says, you don't have to think about anything else. Imagine that everything is inside and nothing is outside. He said that is sufficient. So that's what kind of gets you to 25. And then from 26, pretty much, he starts describing the various forms, saying where is Atala, where is Patala, where is Rasatala, where is Talatala, and what is in his Nabhi. He kind of describes that, which is what is pretty much from 25 till the end of this chapter. Okay. All right. So we'll start
Rajesh, I have a question.
Yeah.
The Brahmandam and Hiranyagarbha, are they the same?
No, it'll come later, but the quick answer to it is the Hiranyandam means the golden egg. So think of an egg, a regular egg that right? The egg has whatever is required for something to come out of it, whether it be a chicken or it could be a fish also lays eggs, right? So it has all the content required to create something, but it cannot create something on its own. Certain environmental, a lot of parameters have to happen for something to come out of it, right? So when it is in a state where it is still unmanifested, but it has the capability, it is called as a Hiranyandam. Once there is a second Vishnu, which we'll talk a little later, right? Which is the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. I'll separate out all those Vishnus much later. When the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu enters into it, and then the 14 worlds are created and all things are formed, now it is something which is manifested in a form which you can understand. That is called as a Brahmandam.
Okay, thank you.
A simple clarification between it. The Hiranyandam is in the unmanifested state, but has everything required. And once it's manifest in the 14 worlds with everything inside, that is called as the Brahmandam. So it's kind of loosely used because right now everything is there. So it's called a Brahmandam. Okay. Before everything is formed, it's called as the Hiranyandam because that's the first thing that forms.
Okay, thank you, Raj.
Okay. So we'll start from 15. Anta kale tu purusha, comma, agate gata sadvasaha. Chindiyat asanga shastrena, comma, spriham dehenu yechatam. Antakale tu purusha agate gata sadvasaha. Chindiyat asanga shastrena, spriham dehenu yechatam.
अन्धकाले तु पुरुष आगते गदसात्वसः सिन्धयात् असङ्गशस्त्रेण स्पृगां देहेनु ये शतम्.
Madhu, second line, first word. Chindyat. The and ya sound together. Chindyat asanga shastrena.
अन्धकाले तु पुरुष आगते गतसात्वसः सिन्ध्यात् असङ्गशस्त्रेण स्पृगां देहेनु ये शतम्.
Shastrena. Okay.
Shastrena.
My book also has Shastrena. Rajesh.
Shastrena.
Yeah.
Okay, you change it to Shastrena.
Oh, Shastrena.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Antakale tu purusha agate gata sadvasaha chindhyat asanga shastrena spraham dehenu yechatam. Antakale tu purusha agate gata sadvasaha chindhyat asanga shastrena spraham dehenu yechatam.
Grihat prabrajito dhiraha, comma, punya tirtha jalaplutah, shuchau vivikta asino, comma, vidhivat kalpitasane. Grihat pravrajito dhiraha, punya tirtha jalaplutah, shuchau vivikta asino, vidhivat kalpitasane.
गृहात् प्रव्रजितो धीरः पुण्यतीर्थजलाप्लुतः शुचौ विविक्त आसीनो विधिवत् कल्पितासने. गृहात् प्रव्रजितोर्धीरः पुण्यतीर्थजलाप्लुतः शुचौ विविक्त आसीनो विधिवत् कल्पितासने.
Grihat pravrajito dhiraha punyatita jalaplutah shuchau vivikta asino vidivat kalpitasane. Grihat pravrajito dhiraha punyatita jalaplutah shuchau vivikta asino vidivat kalpitasane.
Abhyasen manasa shuddham, comma, trivrit brahmaksharam param, mano yachet jita shwaso, comma, brahma bhijam abhismaran. Abhyasen manasa shuddham, trivrit brahmaksharam param, mano yachet jita shwaso, brahma bhijam abhismaran.
अभ्येसन्मनसा शुद्धं त्रिवित् ब्रह्म अक्षरं परं मनो जितस्वासो ब्रह्म बीजम् अविस्मरन्.
Madhu, the first word,
अभ्यसेन्मनसा शुद्धं त्रिवित् ब्रह्म अक्षरं परं मनो यच्चेज्जितश्वासो ब्रह्म बीजम् अविस्मरन्.
Abhyasen manasa shuddham trivrit brahmaksharam param mano yacchejita shvaso brahma bijam avismaran. Abhyasen manasa shuddham trivrit brahmaksharam param mano yacchejita shvaso brahma bijam avismaran.
Niyached Vishaye Bhyokshan. After that, Akshan and then comma. Vishaye Bhyokshan, comma. Manasa Buddhi Saratihi. Manah Karmabhir Akshiptam. K sound Akshiptam, comma. Shubharte Dharaye Diya. Niyached Vishaye Bhyokshan. मनसा बुद्धिसारथिः मनः कर्मभिराक्षिप्तं शुभार्थे धारयेद्धिया
नियच्छेत् विषयेभ्योक्षान् मनसा बुद्धिसारथिः मनः कर्मभिराशिक्तं सुबर्ते धारयेद्धिया नियच्छेत् विषयेभ्योक्षान् मनसा बुद्धिसारथिः मनः कर्मभिराक्षिप्तं सुबार्ते धारयेद्धिया
नियच्छेद्विषयेभ्योक्षान् मनसा बुद्धिसारथिः मनः कर्मभिराक्षिप्तं शुभार्थे धारयेद्धिया नियच्छेद्विषयेभ्योक्षान् मनसा बुद्धिसारथिः मनः कर्मभिराक्षिप्तं शुभार्थे धारयेद्धिया
Tatraika vayavam dhyayet. So the that is there, we're going to break it. First put a dhyayet. Next word starts with a avyuchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva, comma, tatah kinchana nasmaret padam tat paramam vishnoho. So because we're breaking that, put a visarga and comma, vishnoho. Then on top of that ma, there is a ir that will go away. Mano yatra prasidati. Tatraika vayavam dhyayet avyuchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva tatah kinchana nasmaret padam tat paramam vishnoho mano yatra prasidati.
तत्रैकावयवं ध्यायेत् अव्युच्छिन्तेन चेतसा छिन्नेन तेजसा मनो निर्विषयं युक्त्वा तद correct, am I right?
Yeah,
मनो निर्विषयं युक्त्वा तद किञ्चन न स्मरेत् पदं तत् परमं विष्णोः मनो यत्र प्रसीदति तत्रैकावयवं ध्यायेत् अव्युच्छिन्नेन चेतसा मनो निर्विषयं युक्त्वा तद किञ्चन न स्मरेत् पदं तत् परमं विष्णोः मनो यत्र प्रसीदति
तत्रैकावयवं ध्यायेद् अव्युच्छिन्नेन चेतसा मनो निर्विषयं युक्त्वा ततः किञ्चन न स्मरेत् पदं तत्परं विष्णोः मनो यत्र प्रसीदति
padam tat paramam vishno.
Oh, paramam. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Padam tat paramam. Yes. Tatraikavayavam dhyayed avyuchinnena chetasa mano nirvishayam yuktva tata kinchana nasmaret padam tat paramam vishnoho mano yatra prasidati. Thank you.
So here the second line, one of the things that Parikshit also asked is, like, remember, he has 5 questions and he says, what are the 5 things I should not do also, right? So here, as he's saying, when your mind is now begins to focus on this Vishnu, he says, don't think of anything other than that either. So tata kinchana nasmare, don't try to think of anything other than that, right? So that's what he says, you focus on that and focus on only that and nothing else. Rajas tamobhyam akshiptam, comma, vimudham mana atmanah yachet dharanaya dhiro, comma, hanti ya tatkritam malam. So eventually it leads to purification by constantly doing it. It's not going to happen the first time, but by constantly doing it, all the other rajas and tamas, all the other senses or gunas of yours, which will start trying to irritate you in the beginning, will eventually all go away and it will all cleanse it. Rajastamobhyam akshiptam vimudham mana atmanah yache dharanaya dhiro hantiya tatkritam malam.
रजस्तमोभ्याम् आक्षिप्तं विमूढं मन आत्मनः यच्चेद्धारणया धीरो अन्ति या तत्कृतं मलं रजस्तमोभ्यामाक्षिप्तं विमूढं मन आत्मनः यच्चेद्धारणया धीरो अन्ति यातत्कृतं मलम्
रजस्तमोभ्यामाक्षिप्तं विमूढं मन आत्मनः यच्छेद्धारणया धीरो हन्ति यातत्कृतं मलम् रजस्तमोभ्यामाक्षिप्तं विमूढं मन आत्मनः यच्छेद्धारणया धीरो हन्ति यातत्कृतं मलम्
यस्यां संधार्यमाणायां योगिनो भक्ति लक्षणः आशु संपद्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः यस्यां संधार्यमाणायां योगिनो भक्ति लक्षणः आशु संपद्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः
यस्यां सन्धार्यमाणायां योगिनो भक्तिलक्षणः आसु सम्पद्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः यस्यां सन्धार्यमाणायां योगिनो भक्तिलक्षणः आसु सम्पद्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः
यस्यां सन्धार्यमाणायां योगिनो भक्तिलक्षणः आशु सम्पद्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः यस्यां सन्धार्यमाणायां योगिनो भक्तिलक्षणः आशु सम्पद्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षत
ईक्षतः
my bad ईक्षतः
राजोवाच यथा संधार्यते ब्रह्मन् धारणा यत्र सम्मता यादृशी वा हरेदाशु पुरुषस्य मनोमलम् राजोवाच यथा संधार्यते ब्रह्मन् धारणा यत्र सम्मता यादृशी वा हरेदाशु पुरुषस्य मनोमलम्
राजोवाच यदा सन्धार्यते ब्रह्मन् धारणा यत्र सम्मता यादृशी वा हरेदाशु पुरुषस्य मनोमलम् राजोवाच यदा सन्धार्यते ब्रह्मन् धारणा यत्र सम्मता यादृशी वा हरेदाशु पुरुषस्य मनोमलम्
राजोवाच यथा सन्धार्यते ब्रह्मन् धारणा यत्र सम्मता यादृशी वा हरेदाशु पुरुषस्य मनोमलम् राजोवाच यथा सन्धार्यते ब्रह्मन् धारणा यत्र सम्मता यादृशी वा हरेदाशु पुरुषस्य मनोमलम्
श्रीशुक उवाच जितासनो जितश्वासो जितसंगो जितेन्द्रियः स्थूले भगवतो रूपे मनः संधारयेत् धिया. He's saying controlling. Jita is to win, right? To win over. So we winning over, first your breath and then winning over your senses and then winning over your mind and all that. Then start visualizing on that Virat form. Shri Shukham Uvacha Jitasano Jitashwaso Jitasango Jitendriyah Stule Bhagavato Rupe Manas Sandharaye Dhiya.
श्रीशुक उवाच जित आसनो जित श्वासो जित संगो जितेन्द्रियः स्थूले भगवतो रूपे मनः संधारयेत् धिया श्रीशुक उवाच जित आसनो जित श्वासो जित संगो जितेन्द्रियः स्थूले भगवतो रूपे मनः संधारयेत् धिया.
Madhu, and the Jita, you don't have to say it separately. It just becomes
Okay.
Jitasano.
Jitasano.
Yeah.
Am I right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shri Shukovacha Jitasano Jitashvaso Jitasango Jitendriyah Sthule Bhagavato Rupe Manasandharayeddiya. Shri Shukovacha Jitasano Jitashvaso Jitasango Jitendriyah Sthule Bhagavato Rupe Manasandharayeddiya.
Visheshas tasya dehoyam, stavistascha staviyasam, यत्रेदं दृश्यते विश्वं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च सत् विशेषस्तस्य देहोऽयं स्तविष्टश्च सबीयसां यत्रेदं दृश्यते विश्वं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च सत्
विशेषस्तस्य देहोऽयं स्तविष्टश्च सत्वियसां स्तवीयसां यत्रेदं दृश्यते विश्वं भूतं भव्यं भवच्छत् विशेषस्तस्य देहोऽयं स्तविष्टश्च स्तवीयसां यत्रेदं दृश्यते विश्वं भूतं भव्यं भवच्छत्
भवच्च सत्
सत्
विशेषस्तस्य देहोऽयं स्तविष्ठश्च स्थवीयसां यत्रेदं दृश्यते विश्वं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च सत् विशेषस्तस्य देहोऽयं स्तविष्ठश्च स्थवीयसां यत्रेदं दृश्यते विश्वं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च सत्
आण्डकोशे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तावरण संयुते वैराजः पुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रयः आण्डकोशे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तावरण संयुते वैराजः पुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रयः
आण्डकोशे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तावरणसंयुते वैराजः पुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रयः आण्डकोशे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तावरणसंयुते वैराजः पुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रयः
आण्डकोशे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तावरणसंयुते वैराजः पुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रयः आण्डकोशे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तावरणसंयुते वैराजः पुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रयः.
Just one small explanation here, and we'll cover all of this when the cosmic creation, all of that is happening. So this Anda Kosha is referring to the Andam, which is the Brahmandam I spoke about. He says it's covered by 7 Saptavarana. It has 7 layers, right? The Panchabhutam are the 5 layers, and then there is the Mahat, which is the consciousness which is there, and Ahankaram, which is the concept of individuality. So those are the 2 layers, because eventually when you're going and you have to go and merge into the Mula Prakriti, which is the material energy, it has to shed all of those things, because that is the universal consciousness. You kind of have to keep shedding each of these layers as you're going out the Brahmanda. Anyway, what he's saying is that Brahmanda, which is surrounded by the 7 material layers, you are inside that. You are kind of, think of the Bhagavan as inside all of that as one full form. So now from 26 is where the Virat Swarupam starts, right? It will be a little tougher. Dashakam 6 in Narayanam is extremely easy, where the same Virat Swarupam is given by Bhattacharya. This is a little bit harder. So, Patalam etasya hi padamulam, patanti parshni prapade rasatalam, mahatalam vishwa srujota gulpau, talatalam vai purushasya jange. I won't go into too much description. Just a quick thing, so he says Patala, which is it's the bottommost portion of it, and then the heels, that right on top is the Rasathala, the ankles are the Mahathala, and then the portion between the knee to the ankle is the Thalathala. Patalametasya hi padamulam patanti parshne prapade rasatalam mahatalam vishwasrujota gulbhau talhatalam vai purushasya janghe.
पादालमेदस्य हि पादमूलं पडन्ति पार्ष्णि प्रपदे रसातलं महातलं विश्वसृजोतकुल्पौ तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्गे पादालमेदस्य हि पादमूलं पडन्ति पार्ष्णि प्रपदे रसातलं महातलं विश्वसृजोतकुल्पौ तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्गे
पातालमेतस्य हि पादमूले पठन्ति पाष्णि प्रपदे रसातलं महातलं विश्वसृजोतगुल्फो तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्गे
First in Padamulam.
Okay. पातालमेतस्य हि पादमूलं पठन्ति पाष्णि प्रपदे रसातलं महातलं विश्वसृजोतगुल्फौ तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्गे
Dve Januni Suthalam Vishwamurtehe. So put a visarga and comma. The ru that is there, we're going to remove that, and then it becomes the next Uru Dvayam Vitalam Chatalam Cha. Uru is appended to Thai. Uru Dvayam Vitalam Chatalam Cha. Mahitalam Tad Jaganam Mahipate, comma. Nabhastalam Nabhi Saro Grinanti. So Januni, the two knees of you are Suthala, and the two thighs Uru Dvayam are Vitala and Athala, and then the hips are Mahatala, and then the depression in the navel Nabhi Nabhastalam is the outer space. Dve Januni Sutalam Vishwamurtehe Uru Dvayam Vitalam Chatalam Cha Mahitalam Tad Jaganam Mahipate Nabhastalam Nabhisaro Grinanti.
त्वे जानुनि सुतलं विश्वमूर्तेः ऊरुद्वयं विदलं सादलं च महीतलं तज्जगनं महीपते नभस्तलं नाभिसरो गृह्णन्ति द्वे जानुनि सुतलं विश्वमूर्तेः ऊरुद्वयं विदलं सादलं च महीतलं तज्जगनं महीपते नभस्तलं नाभिसरो गृह्णन्ति
द्वे जानुनि सुतलं विश्वमूर्तेः उरुर्द्वयं वितलं चातलं च महीतलं तज्जगनं महीपते नभस्तलं नाभिसरो गृह्णन्ति
द्वे Uru Dvayam, long U.
Oh, long O. Okay, I meant to ask it. Okay. Dve januni sutalam vishwamurtehe uru-dvayam vitalam chatalam cha mahitalam tajjaganam mahipate nabhastalam nabhisuro sarogrananti.
One chinna correction. And the U is the long U. The Ru is a short U only. So it's like Uru Dvayam.
Okay. No. Uru-dvayam.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Uru Dvayam. The U is a long U. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Urat sthalam jyotiraniikamasya, comma, griva mahar badanam vai janosya, tapo raratim viduradi pumsaha, comma, satyam tu shirshani sahasra shirshnaha. I'll send a quick meaning of this after the class, a quick summary, so you can also keep it handy. Otherwise, you won't remember anyway. So, Urastalham jyotiraniikamasya Griva mahar vadanam vaijanosya tapora ratim viduradi pumsaha satyam tu shirshani sahasra shirshnaha.
Urastalam jyotiranigamasya griva magarvadanam vaijanosya daboraratim viduradi pumsaha satyam tu shirshani sagasta shishnaha.
First word is Urastalam, not U,
Urastalam.
not the long U, short U.
Okay. Urastalam jyotiranigamasya griva magarvadanam vaijanosya taboraratim viduradi pumsaha satyam tu shishani sagasta shishnaha.
Urasthalam jyotir-anikamasya griva-mahar vadanam vaijanosya taporaratim viduradi-pumsaha satyam tu shirshani sahasra-shishnaha. Urasthalam jyotir-anikamasya griva-mahar vadanam vaijanosya taporaratim viduradi-pumsaha satyam tu shirshani sahasra-shishnaha.
Indradayo bahava ahurusraha, comma, karnau dishash shrotram amushya shabdah. Shrotram amushya shabdah. Nasyatya dasrau paramasya nase, comma, granosya gandho Mukham Agniriddha, double the Agniriddha. Indradayo Bahava Ahurusraha Karnau Disha Shrotamamushya Shabdaha Nasyatya Dasrau Paramasya Nase Granosya Gandho Mugam Agniriddha. Well, just one time, okay? Next 7-8 minutes.
Indradayo Bhagava Ahur Ustraha Karnau Dishas Srotram Amushya Sabdaha Nasadya Dasrau Paramasya Nase Kranu, am I right? Kranosya Gandho Mugam Agniriddha.
Mukam Agniriddha.
Mugam Agniriddha.
Indradayo bahava ahurustraha karnau dishashrotram amushya shabdaha nasat yadastrau paramasya nase granosya gandho mukam agniriddaha.
In the first line before the comma, ahurusraha, not tra. The T is not coming there, okay? Just sraha.
Sra, S-R-A-A, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah, sraha.
Okay, thank you.
Dhyaur akshini, if you want to break it, chakshura bhut patangaha, comma, pakshmani vishnor ahani ubhecha. It's easy to break at the tra. Vishnor ahani ubhecha. Tad bhru bijrumbah parameshti dishnyam. We'll put that im, break it there, comma. Next word will start with the a. Aposya talu, long u. Rasa eva jihva. Dhyaurakshihi chakshura bhut patangah pakshmani vishnorahani ubhecha tadbhru vijrumbah parameshthi dishnyam aposya talu rasa eva jihva.
Start. Okay. Dhaurakshini sakshur abud badangah pakshmani vishnor agani ubecha tadbru vijrumbah parameshti dikshnyam abosya dalu rasa eva jigva.
And that just before the comma in the second line, dishnyam.
Dishnyam, okay.
Dishnyam,
Dishnyam.
Yeah.
Dishnyam, okay.
Dhyaurakshi니 chakshura bhut patangah pakshmani vishnor ahani ubhecha tadbhru vijrimbah parameshti dishnyam aposya talu rasa eva jivha.
Chandamsi anantasya, one word. It's Chandamsi anantasya, two different words, but you say it together. Chandamsi anantasya shiro grinanti, comma, damshtra yamas sneha kala dvijani, short e, haso janonmada karicha maya, comma, duranta sargo yadapanga mokshaha. Chandamsi anantasya shiro grinanti दंष्ट्रायमस्नेह कला द्विजानी हासो जनोन्मादकरी च माया दुरंत सर्गो यदपांग मोक्षः.
Sandamstenans.
First on the cha, and you're like the second cha, right? Chandamstenantasya.
Okay. Chandamsenantasya shiro grinanti damstro yamasnega kala dvijani haso janon madagari chamaya duranta sargo yadabanga mokshaha.
Madhu, நீங்க அந்த comma முடிஞ்சு damstro, you said damstra, no o there.
Oh, damstra, okay.
Yeah, and then the first word again, chandamsyanantasya.
Sandamsenantasya.
Yeah, I'm still hearing a little bit of the sa coming there. It's a cha, like a throw.
Sorry, I will work on that.
Chandamsyanantasya.
Okay. Chandamsyanantasya.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Chandamsyanantasya shiro grananti damshtrayamasneha kala dvijani haso janonmadakari chamaya दुरन्तसर्गो यदपाङ्गमोक्षः छन्दांस्यनन्तस्य शिरो oh sorry.
One thing. Vreedotharoštodhara. You cannot break it. Vreedotharoštodhara eva lobho, comma, dharmas stanodharma patosya prishtham kastasya medram vrishanau cha mitrau, comma, kukshis samudra ghirayosti sanghaha. व्रीढोत्तरोष्ठोधर एव लोभो धर्मस्तनो धर्मपतोस्य पृष्ठं कस्तस्य मेढ्रं वृषणौ च मित्रौ कुक्षिः समुद्रा गिरयोस्ति सङ्घाः
व्रीडोत्तरोष्टोदर एव लोभो धर्मस्तनो धर्मपदो पदोस्य पृष्ठं कस्तस्य मेढ्रं वृषणौ च मित्रौ कुक्षिः समुद्राकिरयोस्ति सङ्गाः
व्रीडोत्तरोष्ठोधर एव लोभो धर्मस्तनो धर्मपथोस्य पृष्ठं कस्तस्य मेढ्रं वृषणौ च मित्रौ कुक्षिः समुद्रा गिरयोस्ति सङ्गाः.
As you were saying that, I just remember the exact the same words. For example, if you open your Dashakam 6 in Narayani, because I just opened it right now. So in the stanza 7 is exactly this. Kukshis samudra nivaha vasanam tu sandhe shefa prajapati raso vrishanau cha mitraha. Because exactly the same thing. It's just that how you're saying it, but I just condensed it and said only the gist of it. Here they kind of given a long explanation on that, right? Which is why it's long sentences. Nadyosya नाड्योत तनुरुहानि, महीरुहा विश्व तनो नृपेन्द्र अनंत वीर्य श्वसितम मातरिश्वा. Some books may have matharishwa. If you have that R, remove it. Matharishwa, gatir vaya karma guna pravahah. Nadhyosya nadyota tanhuruhani महीरुहा विश्वतनो नृपेन्द्र अनंत वीर्य श्वसितं मातरिश्वा गतिर्वयः कर्म गुणः प्रवाहः.
नद्योस्य नाट्योदधनुर्वाणी महीरुहा विश्वधनोर्नृपेन्द्र अनंत वीर्यश्वसितं मातरिश्वा कदिर्वयः कर्म गुण प्रवाहः.
Rajesh, just one clarification. ये कुछ words different आ रखे इन्नोर दरवा और चलो मुड़ीमा.
In the which
second line ले कुछ words.
Yeah. Ananta Viryash Shwasitam Matarishwa.
It's Mata, not Mata, right?
Yeah, that's some books may have Matha. Just remove that second R that is coming. That's Matarishwa.
Thank you.
Okay.
नद्योस्य नाड्योततनुरुहाणि महीरुहा विश्वतनोर्नृपेन्द्र अनन्तवीर्यश्वसितं मातरिश्वा गतिर्वयः कर्म गुणप्रवाहः.
Yeah, we'll just switch now. Sindhuji, you can be student. Uma, you can be student. Ishasya keshan vidurambu vahan, vasastu sandhyam kuruvarya bhumnah avyakta mahur. If you want to break it, avyakta mahur hridayam manascha, sa chandramas sarva vikara koshah. Into two times. Ishasya keshan vidurambu vahan vasastu sandhyam kuruvarya bhumnah avyakta mahur hridayam manascha sa chandrama sarva vikara koshah.
ईशस्य केशान् विदुरम्बुवाहान् वासस्तु सन्ध्यां कुरुवर्य भूम्नः अव्यक्तमाहुर्हृदयं मनश्च स चन्द्रमा सर्वविकारकोशः. ईशस्य केशान् विदुरम्बुवाहान् वासस्तु सन्ध्यां कुरुवर्य भूम्नः अव्यक्तमाहुर्हृदयं मनश्च स चन्द्रमा सर्वविकारकोशः.
ईशस्य केशान् विदुरम्बुवाहान् वासस्तु सन्ध्यां कुरुवर्य भूम्नः अव्यक्तमाहुर्हृदयं मनश्च स चन्द्रमाः सर्वविकारकोशः ईशस्य केशान् विदुरम्बुवाहान् वासस्तु सन्ध्यां कुरुवर्य भूम्नः अव्यक्तमाहुर्हृदयं मनश्च स चन्द्रमाः सर्वविकारकोशः
विज्ञान शक्तिं महिमामनन्ति, sarvatmanonantah is one word. Sarvatmano antah is there, but it'll say together. Sarvatmanonantah karanam giritram ashvashvatar yustra. I'll say it again. Ashvashvatar yustra gaja nakani, short e. Sarve mrigah pashavash shroni deshe. विज्ञान शक्तिं महिमामनन्ति सर्वात्मनोऽनन्तः करणं गिरित्रम् अश्वाश्वतर्युष्ट्रगजानखानि सर्वे मृगाः पशवः श्रोणिदेशे
विज्ञानशक्तिं महिमामनन्ति सर्वात्मनोऽन्तःकरणं गिरित्रम् अश्वाश्वतर्युष्ट्रगजानखानि सर्वे मृगाः पशवः श्रोणिदेशे विज्ञानशक्तिं महिमामनन्ति सर्वात्मनोऽन्तःकरणं गिरित्रम् अश्वाश्वतर्युष्ट्रगजानखानि सर्वे मृगाः पशवः श्रोणिदेशे
विज्ञानशक्तिं महिमामनन्ति सर्वात्मनोऽन्तःकरणं गिरित्रम् अश्वाश्वतर्युष्ट्रगजानखानि सर्वे मृगाः पशवः श्रोणिदेशे विज्ञानशक्तिं महिमामनन्ति सर्वात्मनोऽन्तःकरणं गिरित्रम् अश्वाश्वतर्युष्ट्रगजानखानि सर्वे मृगाः पशवः श्रोणिदेशे
वयांसि तद् व्याकरणं विचित्रं, मनुर्मनीषा मनुजो निवासः गन्धर्व विद्याधर चारणाप्सरः, swara smritir. If you want to break it, you can break it that ra. Swara smritir asuranika viryah. Vayamsi tadvyakaranam vichitram manurmanisha manujo nivasah gandharva vidyadhara charanapsarah swara smritir asuranika viryah.
Rajesh, one question on the
And
first line, the
longest
second word, the and half word ka. Vayamsi tadhya.
Tadvyakaranam.
There's a half word after the.
That's just it's a bya. It's in the bya. The half va one is like a zero, right, in Sanskrit.
So,
Tad vyakaranam. That the half va and ya is bya.
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 Okay.
Tad vyakaranam.
Rajesh, last la asura nika viryava nika viryava.
Asuranika viryah.
Long dane. Okay.
Long yeah.
वयांसि तद्व्याकरणं विचित्रं मनुर्मनीषा मनुजो निवासः गन्धर्वविद्याधरचारणाप्सरः स्वरस्मृतिरसुरानीकवीर्यः वयांसि तद्व्याकरणं विचित्रं मनुर्मनीषा मनुजो निवासः गन्धर्वविद्याधरचारणाप्सरः स्वरस्मृतिरसुरानीकवीर्यः
वयांसि तद्व्याकरणं विचित्रं मनुर्मनीषा मनुजो निवासः गन्धर्वविद्याधरचारणाप्सरः स्वरस्मृतिरसुरानीकवीर्यः.
Yeah, it's easy to break it under Swarasmritir Asuranika Viryah.
Swarasmritir, okay, anga break pannu. Okay. वयांसि तद्व्याकरणं विचित्रं मनुर्मनीषा मनुजो निवासः विद्याधरचारणाप्सरः स्वरस्मृतिरसुरानीकवीर्यः.
Brahmananam Kshatra Bhujo Mahatma, comma, Vidururangri Shrita. So it's like if you want to break it, I would say Vidurur Angri Shrita Krishna Varnaha. Vidurur Angri Shrita Krishna Varnaha. Nana Bhida Bhijya. Cannot break it till there. Ganopa Panno, comma, Dravyatmaka Karma Vitana Yogaha. Brahmananam Kshatra Bhujo Mahatma Vidururangrishrita Krishna Varnaha Nanabhidha Bhija Ganopapanno Dravyatmaka Karma Vitana Yogaha.
Brahmananam Kshatrabhujo Mahatma Vidururungrishrita Krishna Varnaha Nanabhida Bhija Ganopapanno Dravyatmaka Karma Vidana Yogaha.
That the first name Vidurur Angri.
Vidururangri. Okay. Thank you, Rajeshi. Brahmananam Kshatrabhujo Mahatma Vidururangri. Oh, Vidururangri Srida Krishna Varnaha Nanabhida Bhija Ganopapanno Dravyatmaga Karma Vidana Yogaha.
Brahmananam Kshatrabhujo Mahatma Vidururangrikshitar Krishna Varnaha Nanabhidha Bhija Ganopapanno Dravyatmakah Karma Vitana Yogaha. Brahmananam Kshatrabhujo Mahatma Vidururangrikshitar Krishna Varnaha Nanabhidha Bhija Ganopapanno Dravyatmakah Karma Vitana Yogaha.
Iyan Asavishwara, if you want to break it, or you can say together, Iyan Asavishwara Vigrahasya, comma, yes, Sannivesha Katito Mayate Sandharyatesmin Vapushi Stavishte, comma, Manas Swabudhya Na Yatosti Kinchit. Iyan Asavishwara Vigrahasya yes, Sannivesha Katito Mayate Sandharyatesmin Vapushistavishte Manaswabudhya na yatosti kinchite.
Rajeshi, could you say the first word again? Is it Iana or Inana?
Iyan, see, if you want to break it, it is Iyan Asavishwara, if you want to break it. Or if you're saying it together, Iyan Asavishwara.
Okay. Iana Savishwara Vigrahasya Yasannivesha Kadido Mayade Sandharya Desmin Vapushistavishte Manaswabudhyana Yadosti Kinjid. Yana Savishwara Vigrahasya Yasannivesha Kadido Mayate Sandharya Desmin Vapushistavishte Manaswabudhyana Yadosti Kinjid.
Iyanasavishwara vigrahasya yassanniveshah katito mayate sandharyatesmin vapushisthavishte manasvabudhyana yatosti kinchit. Iyanasavishwara vigrahasya yassanniveshah katito mayate sandharyatesmin vapushisthavishte manasvabudhyana yatosti kinchit.
Sarvadhi Vrityanubhuta Sarva, double it, Vrityanubhuta Sarva, comma, Atma Yatha Swapna Janekshitaikaha Tam Satyamanandha Nidhim Bhajeta, comma, Nanyatra Sajjet Yata Atma Pataha. Just a quick cut with 38 and 39. So essentially up to 37, he's describing the Virat form of the Lord and said, I've described to you this, it's a little bit of a, like we said, it's not a spiritual, it's like a material form because you're still thinking of material things, right, which is there, but he says that's okay. He says, you just, the primary things, he says, other than this, na yatosti kinchit, don't think of anything else, right? Because he says, the takeaway that he's trying to say here is, if all the 14 worlds and everything which is in the world is contained within that Virat Purusha, that means there's nothing outside of him in the Brahmanda. So that is the takeaway here, right? Is don't think there is anything outside of him. The Virat Purusha has everything. So imagine that form. So that way you will not think that there's another superpower or another something which has more than this, right? That's the net he's saying here. And he says there should be absolutely no doubt that, whoever is in the last time, and like we saw this in Dashakam 6 also, it comes at the end of Kriya Vasane, at the end of any puja or anything you do, or at the time of your own life end, think about it, right? That's why the Purusha Suktam is always also chanted, because that has essentially the same things, where it describes the Purusha as all these things as part of the Purusha. So, sa sarvadhivrityanubhuta sarva atma yata swapna jane kshitaikah tam satyamananda nidhim bhajeta nanyatra sajjet yata atma patah.
सर्वधीवृत्त्यनुभूत सर्व आत्मा यथा स्वप्न जने क्षिदैगः तं सत्यमानन्द निधिं भजेद नान्यत्र सज्जोद्यद आत्मपादः सर्वधीवृत्त्यनुभूत सर्व आत्मा यथा स्वप्न जने क्षिदैगः तं सत्यमानन्द निधिं भजेद नान्यत्र सज्जोद्यद आत्मपादः.
ராஜேஷ் சஜ்ஜேதா ஜோதா என்னோட இதுல ஜேத் இருக்கு.
Sajjet, yeah.
Okay. स सर्वधीवृत्यनुभूत सर्व आत्मा यथा स्वप्न जने क्षितैकः तं सत्यमानन्दनिधिं भजेत नान्यत्र सज्जेद्यत आत्मपातः. स सर्वधीवृत्यनुभूत सर्व आत्मा यथा स्वप्न जने क्षितैकः तं सत्यमानन्दनिधिं भजेत नान्यत्र सज्जेद्यत आत्मपातः.
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां द्वितीयस्कन्धे महापुरुष संस्थानुवर्णने नाम प्रथमोऽध्यायः.
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां द्वितीयस्कन्धे महापुरुषसंस्थानुवर्णने नाम प्रथमोऽध्यायः. Should I do 2 times?
Yeah, 1 time. So.
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां द्वितीयस्कन्धे महापुरुषसंस्थानुवर्णने नाम प्रथमोऽध्यायः.
We'll start the second द्वितीयोऽध्यायः. श्रीशुक उवाच एवं पुरा धारणयात्म योनिः विसर्गा comma योनिः. On nashtam there is a ir that goes away. Nashtam smritim pratyavaruddhya tushtat tata sasarjedam amogha. You can break at that ma if you want. Sasarjedam amogha drishtihi visarga comma. On top of the ya there is a ir that goes away. Yathapyayat prag vyavasaya buddhihi. Again the same vya sound. Vyavasaya buddhihi. Shri Shukha vacha एवं पुरा धारणयात्मयोनिः नष्टां स्मृतिं प्रत्यवरुध्य तुष्टात् तथा ससर्जेदम् अमोघदृष्टिः यथाप्ययात् प्राग्व्यवसाय बुद्धिः.
अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः. श्रीशुक उवाच एवं पुरा धारणयात्मयोनिः नष्टां स्मृतिं प्रत्यवरुध्य तुष्टात् तथा ससर्जेदमोघदृष्टिः यथाप्ययात् प्राग्व्यवसाय बुद्धिः. श्रीशुक उवाच एवं पुरा धारणयात्मयोनिः नष्टां स्मृतिं प्रत्यवरुध्य तुष्टात् तदा ससर्जेदमोघदृष्टिः यथाप्ययात् प्राग्व्यवसाय बुद्धिः.
श्रीशुक उवाच एवं पुरा धारणयात्मयोनिः नष्टां स्मृतिं प्रत्यवरुध्य तुष्टात् तथा ससर्जेदमोघदृष्टिः यथाप्ययात् प्राग्व्यवसाय बुद्धिः. श्रीशुक उवाच एवं पुरा धारणयात्मयोनिः नष्टां स्मृतिं प्रत्यवरुध्य तुष्टात् तथा ससर्जेदमोघदृष्टिः यथाप्ययात् प्राग्व्यवसाय बुद्धिः.
ताब्दस्य हि ब्रह्मण एष पन्थाः. Because you're going to pause there, we're going to add a visarga. Otherwise, you don't have to. Yennamabhir dhyayati dhira partaihi paribhramam tatra na vindaterthan, mayamaye vasanaya shayanah. शाब्दस्य हि ब्रह्मण एष पन्थाः यन्नामभिर्ध्यायति धीरपार्थैः परिभ्रमंस्तत्र न विन्दतीर्थान् मायामहे वासनयाशयानः
शाब्दस्य हि ब्रह्मण एष बन्धाः यन्नामभिर्ध्यायति धीरपार्थैः परिभ्रमंस्तत्र न विन्दतेऽर्थान् मायामये वासनयाशयानः शाब्दस्य हि ब्रह्मण एष बन्धाः यन्नामभिर्ध्यायति धीरपार्थैः परिभ्रमंस्तत्र न विन्दतेऽर्थान् मायामये वासनयाशयानः
शाब्दस्य हि ब्रह्मण एष पन्थाः यन्नामभिर्ध्यायति धीरपार्थैः परिभ्रमंस्तत्र न विन्दतेऽर्थान् मायामये वासनयाशयानः शाब्दस्य हि ब्रह्मण एष पन्थाः यन्नामभिर्ध्यायति धीरपार्थैः परिभ्रमंस्तत्र न विन्दतेऽर्थान् मायामये वासनयाशयानः
अतः कविर्नामसु यावदर्थः स्यादप्रमत्तो if you want to break it स्यादप्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धेन्यतार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्षमाणः अतः कविर्नामसु यावदर्थः स्यादप्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धेन्यतार्थे न यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्षमाणः
अतः कविर्नामसु यावदर्थः स्यादप्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धेन्यदार्थेन यदेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्षमाणः अतः कविर्नामसु यावदर्थः स्यादप्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धेन्यदार्थेन यदेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्षमाणः
अतः कविर्नामसु यावदर्थः स्यादप्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धेन्यर्थेन यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्षमाणः अतः कविर्नामसु यावदर्थः स्यादप्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धेन्यर्थेन यतेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्षमाणः
Come on, second line, first word. Siddhenyatharthe.
Okay. सिद्धेन्यथार्थेन यतेत तत्र
Yeah. Satyam kshitau kim kashipoh prayasaihi. You add a visarga comma. Next on top of the bahau, there is a here that will go away. Bahau swasiddhe hyupabharhanai. You cannot break that word. It's a ha and a ya and a u. So hyupabharhanai kim satyanjalau kim purudhana patrya, dig valkaladau satikim dukulaihi. Satyam kshitau kim kashipoh prahyasaihi bahau swasiddhe hyupabharhanaihim satyanjalau kim purudhana patrya dig valkaladau satikim dukulaihi.
सत्यां क्षिदौ किं कशिपो प्रयासैः बाहो स्वसिद्धे ह्युपबर्हणैकिं सत्यञ्जलौ किं पुरुधान्नपात्र्या दिग्वल्कलादौ सदि किं दुकूलैः सत्यां क्षिदौ किं कशिपो प्रयासैः बाहो स्वसिद्धे ह्युपबर्हणैकिं सत्यञ्जलौ किं पुरुधान्नपात्र्या दिग्वल्कलादौ सदि किं दुकूलैः
सत्यां क्षितौ किं कशिपोः प्रयासैः बाहौ स्वसिद्धे ह्युपबर्हणैः किं सत्यञ्जलौ किं पुरुधान्नपात्र्या दिग्वल्कलादौ सति किं दुकूलैः सत्यां क्षितौ किं कशिपोः प्रयासैः बाहौ स्वसिद्धे ह्युपबर्हणैः किं सत्यञ्जलौ किं पुरुधान्नपात्र्या दिग्वल्कलादौ सति किं दुकूलैः
तीराणि किं पति न सन्ति दिशन्ति भिक्षां नैवाङ्ग्रिपाः परभृतस् सरितोऽप्यशुष्यन् रुद्धा गुहाः किमजितोवति cannot break it किमजितोवति नोपसन्नान् कस्मात् भजन्ति कवयो धन धुर्मधान्धान् क्षीराणि किं पति न सन्ति दिशन्ति भिक्षां नैवाङ्ग्रिपाः परभृतः सरितोऽप्यशुष्यन् रुद्धा गुहाः किमजितोवति नोपसन्नान् कस्मात् भजन्ति कवयो धनधुर्मदान्धान्. Just one time, Sindhuji.
क्षीराणि किं पदिनः सन्ति दिशन्ति भिक्षां नैवाङ्घ्रिपाः परप्रदसरितोऽप्यशुष्यन् रुद्धा गुहा किमजितोवदिनोपसन्नान् कस्मात् भजन्ति कवयो धनदुर्मदान्तान्.
क्षीराणि किं पथि न सन्ति दिशन्ति भिक्षां नैवाङ्घ्रिपाः परभृतः सरितोऽप्यशुष्यन् रुद्धा गुहाः किमजितोवति नोपसन्नान् कस्मात् भजन्ति कवयो धनदुर्मदान्धान्.
एवं स्वचित्ते स्वत एव सिद्धः, put a visarga because we're going to pause there, आत्मा प्रियोर्थो भगवान अनन्तः तम निर्वृतो नियतार्थो भजेत, संसार हेतु परमश्च यत्र लॉन्ग उ. एवं स्वचित्ते स्वत एव सिद्धः आत्मा प्रियोर्थो भगवान अनन्तः तम निर्वृतो नियतार्थो भजेत संसार हेतु परमश्च यत्र.
एवं स्वचित्ते स्वत एव सिद्धः आत्मा प्रियोर्धो भगवान् अनन्तः तं निर्वृतो नियतार्थो भजेत संसार हेतु परमश्च यत्र.
एवं स्वचित्ते स्वत एव सिद्धः आत्मा प्रियोर्थो भगवान् अनन्तः तं निर्वृतो नियतार्थो भजेत संसार हेतु परमश्च यत्र.
कस्तां त्वनाधृत्य paranuchintam, break at that ma, paranuchintam. Next word will start with the rite pashun asatim, if you want to break it, or pashun asatim, you can say it together. Pashun asatim nam yunjyat, in sound yunjyat, pashyan janam patitam vaitaranyam, swat karma jan paritapan jushanam. Kastam त्वनाधृत्य परानुचिन्तां ऋते पशून् असतीं नाम युञ्ज्यात् पश्यन् जनं पतितं वैतरण्यां स्वकर्मजान् परितापान् जुषाणम्.
कस्तां त्वनाधृत्य परानुचिन्तां ऋते पशून् असतीं नाम युञ्ज्यात् पश्यन् जनं पतितं वैतरण्यां स्वकर्मजान् परितापान् जुषाणम्.
हस्तां त्वनादृत्य परानुचिन्तां ऋते पशून् असतीं नाम युञ्जात् पश्यन् जनं पतितं वैतरण्यां स्वकर्मजान् परितापान् जुषाणम्.
केचित् स्वदेहान्तर हृदयावकाशे प्रादेश मात्रं पुरुषं वसन्तं चतुर्भुजं खंज रथांग शंक put a plus gadadharam dharanaya smaranti. So next 4 stanzas, 5 stanzas, is going to be describing one of the forms of the Lord, which we'll see in the meaning. केचित् स्वदेहान्तर्हृदयावकाशे प्रादेशमात्रं पुरुषं वसन्तं चतुर्भुजं कञ्च रताङ्गशङ्ख गदाधरं धारणया स्मरन्ति.
केचित् स्वदेहान्तर्हृदयावकाशे प्रादेशमात्रं पुरुषं वसन्तं चतुर्भुजं कञ्जरथाङ्गशङ्खगदाधरं धारणया स्मरन्ति.
केचित् स्वदेहान्तर्हृदयावकाशे प्रादेशमात्रं पुरुषं वसन्तं चतुर्भुजं कञ्जरथाङ्गशङ्खगदाधरं धारणया स्मरन्ति
प्रसन्न वक्त्रं नलिनाय ते क्षणं कदम्ब किञ्जल्क पिशङ्ग वाससं लसन् महारत्न हिरण्मयाङ्गदं स्फुरन् महारत्न किरीट कुण्डलम् प्रसन्नवक्त्रं नलिनायते क्षणं कदम्ब किञ्जल्कपिशङ्गवाससं लसन् महारत्न हिरण्मयाङ्गदं स्फुरन् महारत्न किरीटकुण्डलम्
प्रसन्नवक्त्रं नलिनायते क्षणं कदम्बकिञ्जल्कपिशङ्गवाससं लसन् महारत्न हिरण्मयाङ्गदं स्फुरन् महारत्न किरीटकुण्डलम्
प्रसन्नवक्त्रं नलिनायते क्षणं कदम्बकिञ्जल्कपिशङ्गवाससं लसन् महारत्नहिरण्मयाङ्गदं स्फुरन् महारत्नकिरीटकुण्डलम्
उन्निद्र हृत् पंकज कर्णिकालये योगेश्वरास्थापित one word योगेश्वरास्थापित पाद पल्लवं श्री लक्ष्मणं कौस्तुभ रत्न कंधरम put a im there next word will start at the a amlana lakshmya vanamalayachitam उन्निद्रहृत् पंकज कर्णिकालये योगेश्वरास्थापित पाद पल्लवं श्रीलक्ष्मणं कौस्तुभरत्नकन्धरम् अम्लान लक्ष्म्या वनमालयाचितम्
उन्निद्रहृत् पंकज कर्णिकालये योगेश्वरास्थापित पाद पल्लवं श्रीलक्ष्मणं कौस्तुभरत्नकन्धरम् अम्लानलक्ष्म्या वनमालयाजितम्
उन्निद्रहृत्पङ्कजकर्णिकालये योगेश्वरास्थापितपादपल्लवं श्रीलक्ष्मणं कौस्तुभरत्नकन्धरम् अम्लानलक्ष्म्या वनमालयाचितम्.
Do one more and stop. Vibhushitam Mekhalayanguliyakaihi. So remember the Mekhalaya Anguliyakaihi. So Mekhalayanguliyakaihi, comma, visarga, comma. Next word on top of the Maha, the ir goes away. Maha Dhanair Nupura Kankanadibihi. Snigdha Malakunchita. One word. Snigdha Malakunchita Neela Kuntalaihi. Again, visarga, comma. On top of that V, that ir goes away. Birocha Mananana Hasa Peshalam. विभूषितं मेखलयाङ्गुलीयकैः महाधनैर्नूपुरकङ्कणादिभिः स्निग्धामलाकुञ्चितनीलकुन्तलैः विरोचमानाननहासपेशलम्.
Many of these words are same as what is coming in Bhagavan's Avadaram, right?
Exactly. It's describing the form of the Lord essentially. So a lot of the things are the same, you know.
Yeah. विभूषितं मेखलयाङ्गुलीयकैः महाधनैर्नूपुरकङ्कणादिभिः स्निग्धामलाकुञ्चितनीलकुन्तलैः विरोचमानाननहासपेशलम्.
विभूषितं मेखलयाङ्गुलीयकैः महाधनैर्नूपुरकङ्कणादिभिः स्निग्धामलाकुञ्चितनीलकुन्तलैः विरोचमानाननहासपेशलम्.
Do one more because that completes the description. Adina Leela Hasitekshanollasat. Hasitekshanollasat. Put a plus. Bru Bhanga Sansuchita Bhuryanugraham. Iksheta Chintamayam. If you want to break there, Chintamayam Enam Ishwaram, or you can say it together, Chintamayam Enam Ishwaram. Yavan mano dharana yava tishthate. Adhina leela hasitekshanollasat bhrubanga sansujita bhuryanugraham iksheta chintamayamena mishwaram yavan mano dharana yava tishthate.
Rajesh, one question on the first line, the last, is it a half the? Teksha no lasad the irka
Ama,
sava.
Asiteksha no lasad brubanga. Id.
Thank you.
Normally it is it, but because bha is coming, that sometimes becomes a id in that context.
Adeenalila haside kshanollasat brubanga samsujida bhuryanugraham ईक्षेद चिन्तामयमेनमीश्वरम् यावन्मनोधारण यावदिष्टदे
अदीनलीलाहसिते क्षणोल्लसद्भ्रूभङ्गसंसूचितभूर्यनुग्रहम् ईक्षेत चिन्तामयमेनमीश्वरम् यावन्मनोधारणयावतिष्ठते.
Stop here. I'll just quickly say the meaning up to this point, right? So previous one, Shukra Bhagavan kind of described the Virat form, and he says, that even Lord Brahma, he says, when he lost his consciousness, which is, the end of the Naimitika Pralaya, one of the first day, after every day of Brahma, like we said, when he comes, he still he forgets the art, right? He forgets his creative energy. So he says, even Brahma meditated on this Virat form of the Lord, and because of which he then got the knowledge and the information to be able to go and create. So he said that's why that form of the Lord is extremely important, he says. And then he goes on to say, Shukram says one thing, he says that's why Shabdasya hi Brahmana Esha, that the thing he says that he's telling Parikshit that the Vedas, and we saw it in the past, the Vedas, while it says you do this, you'll get this benefit and all that, it gets you ready for the other upper worlds, right? To become a demigod and become all of that. But he says, don't waste your time doing all of that stuff. That's what he says. And that doesn't mean don't chant the Vedas. He says, like you remember, even Narada told Vedavyasa that only if a person is fully realized, then he should take a Veda, because otherwise they will think of it as misleading, because they'll say you have to chant this, you get this benefit, and they'll kind of get into that rut, right? That's what Narada was telling Vyasa. So same thing Shukra Brahman is saying, that people might do it and it might appear confusing, but you have to remember that what you really need is beyond all this word, you have to go into Vaikuntham, right? That's the primary purpose. So he says the first step to be able to do that is you should not have any attachments of wanting things, because he says if you just practice the Vedas, he says you may want attachment because you'll ask for things, right? So he says, he gives a few examples very nicely. He says, when the earth itself is flat, right? That's why he says that Kashipoho Prayasahi, in that thing he says, when the earth itself land is flat, why do you need cots and beds? When you have your arms, why do you need a pillow? Right? Why do you need other things to wash, a variety of utensils? Why do you even need utensils when you actually have your hand? Right? When the tree bark is giving enough things, why do you have to worry about various clothings? And the point here is, he's not saying you should go become like an animal and not think about anything. He says think of what is the bare necessities, right? And don't go beyond it. Right? That doesn't mean you have to go just sleep on the floor and wear bark. That's not the point he's trying to say. He says, think of what is bare minimum. You learn to live in that, because then you can focus on what is important. Otherwise, you'll keep getting into this cycle of wanting more things, right? And then he gives a few more things. He gives some examples. He says, there are so many clothes which are lying in the common road, or charity which is there. That should be enough. Why do you want to go buy more expensive clothes? He says the rivers are there that will give you water. The fruits which are falling from the tree gives it for free. Why are you worried about going and buying and other things to eat? He says, you do these things, it's sufficient even in your last days. Don't want more things. That's what he's actually saying here. And then he says, the most important thing he says is, I think in the Hridayara Koshe, somewhere it'll come. So anyway, so he says once you kind of do that, he says you have to then imagine the form of the Lord. And that's when he starts now. How is the form of the Lord? He says, who is resting in the region of your heart. Hridayava Koshe is Pradesha Matram. The Pradesha Matram is the size when you stretch your hand between your thumb and the end of your ring finger. Whatever that distance is, whatever that length is, 6 inches, whatever that may be. He says, imagine that form of the Lord in your heart, in that size, who's actually sitting there. And then he goes on to describe the form of the Lord on which you should meditate. Now, you can meditate on the Virat Swarupam also, but if you think that's too complicated, he says, I'll give you an easier form to meditate on, which is what is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which we'll see the meaning of that in the next class. Om Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Gopika Jeevana Smaranam Govinda Govinda Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Kahena vacha manasendriyerva buddhyatmana va prakrite swabhavat karomi yat sakalam parasmai narayanayeti samarpayami.
Thank you, Rajesh. Happy Navratri to you
Happy
and family.
Navratri.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Rajesh.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you,
Next
Rajesh.
week no class, and mostly the week after that we will. Okay, so
Thank you.
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.